Victoria was born in 1819. In 1837, when William IV died, Victoria, of course, the first thing that happened to her was that she woke up one morning and there kneeling was the Prime Minister and the Archbishop of Canterbury, both saying, "Your Majesty." And she realized her Uncle William had finally died, and she was now Queen of England. In her youth, Victoria was rather hoydenish. She was a little bit loud, lots of laughter, lots of bouncing around. She was full of vigor and vitality. Her mother was always trying to squelch her. It wasn't ladylike to be so robust and boisterous, she thought. However, when she became queen, the first thing Victoria did was to move out of her mother's bedroom and into a bedroom of her own. She was free at last. The queen had her first taste of government when she fell in love with the Prime Minister. Lord Melbourne, who was Prime Minister, he was a Whig. The Whig party was, the Whigs and the Tories were in and out of power, and he was the head of the Whig government. He was an absolute charmer. He was a little over 50, but he looked much younger, and he was an absolute delight to be around. The women, anyway, found him so. And the Queen had a crush on him. He was a teenage girl with a crush on her teacher, so to speak, and he more or less helped her through this first year or so of her reign, and she just adored him. It was difficult when the governments changed, then she would lose her favorites, as we'll see. In the fall of that year, 39, that her two first cousins came over from Saxe-Coburg for a second visit, Ernst and Albert. These were her mother's favorite nephews. And of course, the cabinet and the court wanted Victoria to get married. They wanted a nice, strong, firm male hand. Obviously, she needed guidance. She was a weak and feeble female. She didn't want to marry anybody, by the way. She was perfectly happy. This was the first freedom she'd ever enjoyed, and she was not interested in marrying. But here they were, her cousins were right back there, and now she took a second look. And in her diary, which she kept all of her life, she wrote that night, "Oh, glorious creature." Well, she'd seen Albert now for the first time, really seen him. And she was enchanted. Well, he was a dazzler at that age. He was a year younger than she, but tall. She was not quite 5 feet tall, and he was just a fraction over 6 feet. And she thought he was the most beautiful thing she'd ever laid eyes on. Well, her mother heard about this immediately and was delighted because she'd made her choice and now push forward and get her married. Well, Victoria had to do the proposing. She was the reigning queen. He was simply a ducal prince, and he couldn't say anything. So she proposed, and he graciously accepted. Well, they planned the marriage for the winter of the following year, and it would take place at St. George Chapel, Windsor, where most of these events we talk about did occur. It went off splendidly. Of course, everybody came from all over Europe, all the members of the family, to see the young couple off, and it was one of those fairy tale weddings. She was reasonably pretty at that point. And there she was, gazing moon-eyed up at her Prince Charming at the altar. It was quite a panorama of loveliness. So anyway, they were married.